All right, welcome to Talkin Investing. Sorry for the delay. You are here with Tom and George. Hello, George.
Hey,
What's happening?
nothing. Just having a good day.
I see a new feature in the chat. I see like these crowns, number 1 and number 2.
I think it's who's the person who texts that does the most
Oh, they're the most
comments.
active.
Yeah.
All right, I did not know that. Is that new? So
Yeah.
I digress. Welcome everybody to another week in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. And this was a week where on our Tuesday live stream, which was for members, we do a Tuesday live stream members only. We were feeling really good. Monday and Tuesday was good stuff. The rest of the week, not so much. Today was okay. And this is also the last trading day of the month for the equities. So for all the Bitcoin miners. So we'll look at how the month of May turned out. It petered out a little bit. It was really looking like it was going to be a great month. It's still a good month, but we're still not where we need to be. So we're going to talk about where Bitcoin's going, where the Bitcoin miners are going. We'll take a look at all the numbers like we always do, and we have more stories to talk about than we can possibly go through. So let's get right to it. But if you guys could first do us a favor and smash the like button, it would be much appreciated. We got 12 likes. We're going for 100 likes. We got to get this stream going. I know I showed up late, so it's my fault. But
Tom, is it true? Is it true that you were selling Bitfarms?
Not true, but we have some big news on somebody else who is. So
really?
We'll get to that. But I did not sell my Bitfarms, and I'm going to buy some Bitfarms, I think, next week. So that's just my personal investment decision. Obviously, not financial advice. You guys do your own thing. We're going to talk about Bitfarms. We're going to talk about Riot. We're going to talk about Hive. We're going to talk about BitDeer. We're going to talk about Circle. We also have a bunch of companies buying Bitcoin. So we're going to go through that. This was the biggest, I think this was the biggest week of adoption in Bitcoin history. And I know we just pulled back for a few days, and I actually think we're probably going to pull back a little bit more. But this is what I've been talking about for 2 weeks. I really thought once we hit our new high, there was a really strong chance that we would retest 100. And you can see so far, I did do some buying because I had a line of support right here. This is the 15-minute time frame. So, you know, these lines have been around for a while. So it bounced right off of this line of support today. So I did make some small purchases right here. I would have made bigger purchases if it was not for the fact that I really, number one, I've already bought more than enough. I really shouldn't buy anymore. And number two, I think there's quite a reasonable chance we will retest 100,000. And I'm not going to wait for 100. If we get to 101,000, I'm going to make some more purchases. I think there's going to be some discounts on some stuff next week before we get back on track and start running again. That's my personal opinion. So I think a little bit down before we go up, but I'm still very bullish on Bitcoin. And I am still very bullish on the Bitcoin miners that I'm invested in. That is not all of the Bitcoin miners. And you can see, other than Griffin, which is, I don't even count that yet, every single Bitcoin miner was red today that we follow, but not by much. Other than BitDeer, which had to my knowledge, I looked and looked. I couldn't. They had an absolute average trading volume day. They actually had a press release that I would have thought might have bolstered the stock a little bit, but they were down 10% on a day where, you know, Marathon was down 3%, Riot was down 1%, CleanSpark 1.7, Iron 2.4. Core Scientific was almost at break even, and it was green on and off throughout the day. You had Cypher down 4, BitDeer down 10, TerraWolf down 3. You know, Bitfarms, HUT, Hive, those all were about, 1%. So not much activity. MicroStrategy, 0.5%. So it was a pretty calm day today, but I did feel like, bouncing off of this line was one of my spots where, you know,
All right.
I felt there was some buying opportunity. And I do think this next line, and on the 1-day schedule, I think these lines will make more sense. We'll get to that next. I do think that, you know, if we retest this, and I won't wait to get down and touch this, if we get in this neighborhood, I never wait to be perfect. You know, if we get in this neighborhood, I will be buying some Bitcoin miners, as well as maybe adding to my Bitcoin. And just for those of you new to the channel, I actually my Bitcoin is through the ETFs. So that's
Has that helped you a lot, Tom?
yeah, I'm like you, George. I mean, at one point I shifted strategies to pretty much at a similar time, but you went heavier than I did to dividing, really diversifying my portfolio more and more and more, so that I'm not quite equal weight Bitcoin versus the Bitcoin miners. I still have more invested in the Bitcoin miners than I do in Bitcoin, but you know, I bulked that position up. I bought some more today, and if we get down to 101, I'll buy some more. So I'm still confident we got a lot of room left in the bull market, although I will tell you, one of the articles we're going to go through today is I came across 2 different articles calling a top and saying the bull market's over. So let me get to Metaplanet. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for being a member. I'm not sure who that was, but they are now Metaplanet. One of our members must have just bought in. Tom, it was the usual Bitcoin conference rug pull. So that's a great point, Metaplanet. You could set your watch by this. When every year we have the Bitcoin conference, and Bitcoin does poorly in that time frame. It makes no sense. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but you definitely can set your watch by it. It's just what seems to happen. So you're right. We got that again this year, and we were kind of set up for it. And like I said, I still think there's a little more downside in the very short. I'm talking about the very short term. Like I could miss it over the weekend, or I could catch it at the beginning of the week next week. And then I think we turn back around, in my opinion. But let's see what you guys think. Finishing typing. Okay, so what's, and this is kind of, are you bearish or are you bullish? Which one do we hit next? So this is bear in mind, I'm talking about in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Which one of these do we hit next? Because I think we're going to hit one, if not both of these in the next 2 weeks. Do we retest? That says 10,000. It's supposed to say 100,000. You want me to redo this, or does everybody know the poll is 100,000? Should I redo it, George? Because anybody looking,
they know.
Everybody knows it's 100,000. So do we retest 100,000, or do we go to a new all-time high, which is even 1 penny over $112,000 would be a new all-time high? So I think a new all-time high is coming, and I think that, you know, we've got a long way to go, in my opinion, on this bull market. I still think things are setting up very positively, and I'm going to go through some of the momentum that's going on, and you just can't unring these bells, in my opinion. We are there. This is the place we've been waiting to get forever. We're there, and I think it's just up from here. There's been a massive decrease in the volatility of Bitcoin and Bitcoin trading, and I think that lends itself to what I've been saying. You know, and I will admit, I said this 4 years ago, and it was not right. I said I think we're no more crypto winters, and we had a full-blown crypto winter in 2022, devastating.
12 days
12 days
of
until.
it until it starts to go to hit a new all-time high again.
Oh, you think we're 12 days away? Sour Melon
Yeah, I
Gaming.
think 12 days.
So sometime near the middle of June. So you think we're
Yeah.
going there?
June, worst case scenario would be the July, like 7th.
So,
But I think we see a nice pump.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it. So far this poll is actually pretty close.
Larry, he needs 100,000.
It's leaning a little bit bullish, and yeah, I hope it's not getting skewed by the fact that people think 10,000. Again, the poll, if you just got here, is are we going to hit 100? Are we going to retest 100,000? 10,000 is obviously ridiculous. Are we going to retest 100,000? Which is my next line here at like 99.8. So I'm kind of looking at that as a potential retest. Right. Or are we going to turn around and go back up and get a new all-time high? Sour Melon Gaming, 10-to-1 split on Bitfarms in 2026. Don't hate me, Tom. That's from Sour Melon Gaming. I would never hate you, Sour Melon Gaming. Thanks for being a member, and thanks for all of the thoughts you've put into our conversations in the public and private streams. So I know. Here we go again. Bitfarms is under $1. It was under 90 cents at one point today. It actually rallied to get back to 92 cents, which sounds ridiculous. But I will once again hold my ground and say they will not need they will not need a reverse split. And I've been fighting this fight for 5 years now. People thinking that Bitfarms is going to need to do a reverse stock split. And to be fair, they have changed their business model. So the conversation is a little bit different this time. They've changed their business model. And I've kind of changed my long-term plans with that stock, but I haven't sold any. And like I said, I think there's a catalyst coming that could be a potential to buy more. So maybe we should talk about that next.
Yeah, let's hear this catalyst.
Ready?
I'm going to tell you one thing, Tom. You have definitely kept the faith with Bitfarms.
I've held strong for years now. We'll see if it pays off. And what I'm about to show you, I said on each of the last 2 live streams I thought was going to happen shortly. I didn't guarantee it because obviously, I don't know, but here we go. This was filed with the SEC. Riot is selling all 90 million shares of its Bitfarms. They're done. They're out. They don't want any part of this. I've been pounding the table that was the case. This has been over. And so now here they have filed with the SEC that they intend to sell all of their Bitfarm stock, which is why I didn't buy any Bitfarms today, because this could be a brutal little stretch. I don't know what this does. They have 90 million shares. They're at, I think, 16%. And it says relationship to issuer 10% stockholder, but the last time I looked, that was...
Oh my goodness, Tom. I mean, where do you put it?
As far as where could it go to?
Yeah.
So let's look at the chart.
I think it could go sub 50.
Well, I'm looking at if it retests these lows, I'll feel lucky, because this is, this is a big swing. It would have to fall. It got down to, let's see, around 60, 67. I have a line at 68 cents, but it got a little tiny bit under that line. But from where we are today, and it's already been pulling back, that would be a 26% pullback from here. And George, you're thinking maybe it could get worse than that. And believe me, in the crypto winter, it did get worse than that. This got down to 37.7 cents at the bottom of the crypto winter. So is it going to go retest though? I don't know where this goes. Or, you know what? I mean, let's take a look at Bitfarms and see
What
what
percentage
their daily
down is that to get to the bottom?
I'll check that out. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I'll go back there and check that out. So their average, so yeah, this is ugly. Their average daily trading volume is 20 million. And we've got one
Yeesh.
company that's going to sell 90 million shares. So I think you're staring at some ugly price action on Bitfarms over whatever period of time. I'm assuming, there's no time like the present. And now that they've announced it, they know, the stock's not going to get a bump from here. So they just got to get rid of this. It is what it is. They lost a bunch of money on this trade. And I don't know why they ever did it in the first place. I was pretty outspoken that, when they started doing this, it was at a time that Riot desperately needed to focus on their own business. Now, to their credit, I do think they've done a really good job in the year 2024 and so far in 2025, moving their business in the right direction. So that's one of my big holdings. I think they're moving in the right direction, but to me, this was always a distraction, and it was never going to happen, and it was a complete waste of time and money and effort, in my opinion. And remember, they got deep into Bitfarms business. They made them switch out members of the board of directors. There was a massive shakeup at Bitfarms.
Don't they have somebody now on the board?
Yes.
That's even worse.
Well, they might step down, but I think it's a qualified board member regardless, but it just didn't make sense. What stop worrying about Bitfarms and worry about Riot. And I own both of these companies. So, it's not like I'm hating on either one of them, but I do think, it does not bode well that their biggest shareholder just said they're selling all their shares. So to me, that is that.
Dude, I cannot understand why isn't somebody telling them they need to say on Monday they're becoming a U.S. company. That's the only thing I think that they have as a card to play right now.
You know what? Now that you just said that out loud, George, maybe they were waiting for this. Maybe because they knew. I mean, if I knew and I've been saying it, they knew that
Right.
Riot was going to dump all their stocks sooner than later. So maybe they were waiting for that washout event, let that happen, and then at some point you get that giant good news story of saying, oh, hey, we're a U.S. company now. So that's a great point. And that might be the reason they've dragged their feet all this time.
Well, it didn't make sense when they joined with an American company. And that was already trading.
Right.
It didn't make sense. They didn't do it then.
They acquired Stronghold, and, Hut is doing something similar. Their Bitcoin mining subsidiary is getting acquired by Griffin, a company they're 100 times the size of, but they're just doing it so they can, it's a backdoor way to go public. So now their Hut is getting rid of their Bitcoin mining. They'll still own shares of the other publicly traded company, but Hut 8 itself will mine no Bitcoin. But again, they merge with a tiny failing Bitcoin mining company, and
By a loser.
Right. So it's the same situation. Stronghold was a failing company. They were, they had a 95%.
I mean, they have a great story. You know what I mean?
They do. For those of you who don't know about Stronghold, I mean, you should look up what they do. It's remarkable. No one else is doing it. It's very environmentally friendly, and they're cleaning up, 100 years worth of mess that the coal mining left behind. And the problem for them was they just didn't have enough money to turn the corner and grow through the crypto winter. So they were a victim of the crypto winter, as were, 7 of the stocks that we followed became insignificant, and some of them still exist, but, they're now $10 million market cap, whereas we're looking at $1 billion, $5 billion market cap companies. So there were winners and losers through the crypto winter. And, Bitcoin or Bitfarms did merge with Stronghold, or they acquired them. And, to George's point, that would have been a great time to announce that you're a U.S. company. So now I had not thought of it. Go ahead, George.
I have a feeling this had more to do with ego than anything else.
Because on Riot's part,
Bitfarms, not Riot. Riot was just trying to, make some money. I have a feeling it had more to do with ego on, I forget the guy's name that's on the board of directors on Bitfarms.
Their main.
Yeah, because he's a very hard person to work with. He fired the other CEO. He's been through how many CEOs and how quickly of a period of time?
I think it was, don't quote me on this, but I think they had 5 CEOs in 5 years.
Yeah. So that means you're not easy to work with. And he took this great company, and destroyed it because he's got an ego. And usually when you're dealing with people that have an ego, it doesn't end up well. They care more about their ego than they do about the making money, because now $2.82 for Bitfarms or whatever it was.
It was $2.32, but you're right. That's that's a 2.5x from where they are now. And they're about to go down from here, I think.
Oh,
right. I don't know how. So their major shareholder dumps 90 million shares and the stock doesn't take a big hit from that.
Right, and I doubt they probably only sold. When you got something trading 20 million shares of stock a day, you can't dump them all in one day.
It's going to take them a long time.
I know.
Or
so anytime you think there's a run, it's not going to be a run.
It's either going to take them a long time, or they are going to get destroyed and just dump it, and this thing's going to go down like you're talking about to 50 cents
days,
or.
Yeah, if it goes in 5 days. Wow.
So this is what's coming. They've told us. We now know. We've been officially informed. Yeah. So,
and not only that, the whole optics of the whole thing with Bitfarms has been terrible. The whole, you know what I mean? We're a small little channel that talks about Bitcoin miners, and they basically have never reached out to us again. They're harem scarum. They had to go change their whole plan, and now they decided to regroup and go in a different direction.
Yeah, they've had to
harem scarum, Tom.
That I get it, and I think it has a lot to do. Maybe what Riot's goal was, and I don't know why it's worth it to them. In Bitcoin mining, worry about your own, right? You're competing against the global hash rate. That's your true competition as a Bitcoin miner, because that's what sets the difficulty level. And so, attacking one of your competitors is not helpful. And so I just don't know what their line of reasoning was. Did they ever really think they were going to buy Bitfarms? Maybe they did. You guys know, if you've been watching the channel, I always said there was no chance that this was ever going to happen. It never made sense, and now they've given up. So I don't get it. And from Bitfarms' perspective, what it did to them is it did suppress the price of their stock in a big way, and it has dramatically changed their plans. Right? They were talking about, for 10 months, they were giving us updates that they would get to 21 exahash by the end of 2024 and 35 exahash by the end of 2025. Now, effectively, they're at approximately 20 exahash, and they said they're done growing their Bitcoin mining exahash. So they put no end on that time frame. They said no more money is going to the Bitcoin mining.
Who are their investors, Tom? Seriously, they're in the Bitcoin. Now they're going after the AI people.
Well, and this is, I don't know, it seems like they're late, because we've had so many Bitcoin miners diversify. And I don't mind the strategy of diversification, right? If you're a Bitcoin miner, there's one thing I don't like that Iron's doing, but the reason I hold Iron is I love what they did. They went from 0 to, they're talking about being at 50 exahash in the next month, and they did it. So while everyone else is talking about everything else, all of a sudden they put themselves into the top 3 Bitcoin miners by exahash. They're in the top 3 lowest price per Bitcoin out of all the Bitcoin miners. They make money gap. Generally accepted accounting principles, they are profitable. EBITDA, they're even more profitable. Obviously, they're cash flow positive in a big way. My only issue with them is, I like that they're diversified, but I don't like the fact that they hodl no Bitcoin and they're taking 100% of their cash flow positive and investing it all in high performance computing. Now, maybe they're going to look like geniuses 2 years from now. I don't know the answer to that. I do hold the stock because they're just, they're one of the big players in this space, and they're out ahead of most of their competitors in the amount of exahash they have, even though they're going to take a pause. According to them, they're going to pause, indefinitely, but they're going to pause at, I think, 52 exahash. So, okay, I can accept that. But when you've been saying 35 and you pause indefinitely at 20,
yeah,
that doesn't work. That means you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And then there's reasons and et cetera, but
that's a big miss. It's not like, even we were picking on Marathon and they had a 6 or a 7 terahash miss. You know what I mean?
Right. And we've seen other Marathon and Riot both had about a 1 year. They weren't the same years. I think one was for Marathon. 2022 was brutal. They were going backwards. But we kept saying they do have big plans. I mean, they got to a point where they were like, there was a month in the middle of 2022 where there was like 8 or 10 Bitcoin miners that mined more Bitcoin than them. And they are now by far, it's not even close. They mine the number 1 amount of Bitcoin every single month for the last year and a half. And I don't see that changing indefinitely into the future. But they had a year that was a nightmare. But we talked about, if they get there, it'll be better late than never. And they did get there. And then in 2023, kind of the same thing happened to Riot, in my opinion. And it was like they were stuck at 12 exahash, 12 exahash, 12 exahash. But now they're over 30 exahash. So, they got through. They built their infrastructure from the ground up. They're vertically integrated. This is something Marathon's still working on. They've converted a lot of their fleet to being vertically integrated, but they're nowhere near 100%. And so they've got a long way to go on that. And versus Riot, so they took a lot longer to add their exahash, but it's all on their own infrastructure. From the ground up, they've built it. But you're right. With Bitfarms, it's not better late than never. It's never, right? They said 35 exahash, and now they're saying, nope, that is no longer the plan. It's not going to take us longer. We're just not doing it.
Have they encumbered any of their Bitcoin Bitfarms?
I don't know. If they did, I think it's a small portion.
Oh, okay.
Do you think they did borrow $300 million? Which
do you think the model of the Bitcoin miners is broken?
I don't think that this model is broken. What I do think is that it's extremely competitive. And in this having all of these companies, the truth is all of these companies had to change their business model from what it was in the last halving. And what they had to do was understand that the bottleneck back in 2020 and 2021 for the Bitcoin mining universe was getting their hands on machines. So nobody worried about the energy. They couldn't get their hands on machines. They were paying 50% or 100% deposits to wait 6 or 12 months to have machines delivered. Well, we've now gotten to the point where we're in the opposite spot. The machines are an absolute commodity at this point. They're selling for pennies on the dollar of what they were paying, joules per terahash in the previous cycle. It's now all about your long-term energy deals, your infrastructure, your vertical integration. So these companies had to change, and it was a big upfront investment for them to change. So what I've been trying to say is, it's my opinion they all took a big hit this time, but the ones that did it right have now created an infrastructure to move forward and be successful Bitcoin miners. Now, if it so happens that they're diversifying and they're also successful at high performance computing, at which so far it looks like the profit margin in high performance computing is incredible. So, but let's see if anybody gets any contracts, because everyone's talking about it, but very few of these companies are actually getting contracts. So, maybe the process is longer. Maybe the sales process is 12, 18, 24 months, and it's going to take a while before we get there. But I do think that, their stocks aren't going to move on talking about building infrastructure for high performance computing. That was 2024. The companies like TeraWulf that talked a lot about that, had a lot of press releases. They made a major change in their business. They're not even reporting their Bitcoin operations anymore. They haven't been all year. In fact, Bitfarms just did their last monthly report. They're not going to do any more, they said in their conference call. But TeraWulf already did this a long time ago. They switched away. Their goal was to get to 13 exahash. They never made any promises past that, and it looks like that's all they're going to do. They've allocated 500 megawatts of their 750 megawatts to high-performance computing. So, they're all in on that, and that's great, but they got to start generating some revenue. 500 megawatts should be generating, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. Now, again, like I said, it may take a while. It's a longer cycle. There's a lot of infrastructure for them to finish building, and then they got to get deals. But I don't think the model's broken, but I think the game has changed, and those who didn't adapt or who didn't adapt in time maybe have gotten left behind.
Yeah, it's sad to think that every day you get distracted from your plan that you're supposed to do, you end up here with a company that had great plans, great ideas, innovation, and now look at them.
And operationally, when Ben was running the Bitcoin mining fleet, and in my mind he probably still is, they're a very good company, highly efficient company at mining Bitcoin. But, their stock's a disaster, and, now their biggest shareholder is going to sell 90 million shares. And they've announced they're not going to give monthly operational updates anymore, and they're going to be focusing all of their efforts on growing their high performance computing part of their business. So again, maybe all these guys are right.
Do you change your opinion now on Bitfarms?
So the opinion that I've changed, yes. And I'm not saying they're a bad company, and I'm not saying this is going to work out for them. And even though I've changed my opinion, if they have a big pullback, I am buying more Bitfarms. With this announcement of Riot selling all their shares, if Bitfarms tanks, I will buy that dip for sure, because that's
Really?
not issuing new shares. That's just the fact that, supply, dumping 90 million of supply is creating a disturbance in the supply-demand equation, and the stock price could likely take a big hit from that. That is a buying opportunity, in my opinion. I do think
I find it very interesting. Sorry, Tom, I'm just thinking about this. Didn't they just raise 300 million, within the last month?
That they raised $300 million through debt. So no, they're not diluting anymore.
I know.
But you bring up an important point, because everybody is still in the mindset that all these companies do is dilute, but most of these companies have done zero or close to zero dilution. We're 5 months into 2025. The stock dilution portion of the program is over. It will return prior to the next halving, but it will be a small fraction of what they had to do this time. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's just sad.
So,
Brett, you want me to convert my XRP into Bitcoin? I will tell you one thing. I shouldn't tell you this, but I have my Bitcoin, some of it, on Coinbase. And Coinbase has a great program where you do a wrap Bitcoin, and then you can loan off of it. And I did do that with a little bit and bought in some more altcoins.
Oh, and you bought more altcoins. All right.
Yeah. What are you making me a bet about?
I
No, Brett.
Oh.
Make me a bet. What's my bet? Hey, I love them both. I have not changed anything on my XRP at all. I still think XRP is going to be a fantastic investment. I've been happy with it. They're still playing games with the court, and there's a crazy idea being floated around there, which, you know, it's so stupid that it might even happen. You know, that they're saying that the government should pay XRP money for what they've done to the price of XRP.
Yeah, well, I mean, they disrupted XRP for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt, you know, I don't know what's going to come of that, but there's no doubt they did that.
And basically all it is probably all those guys are in it, and they want a way to get funnel money to people. That's all anything ever is.
Yeah, and we're going to talk XRP because I have several articles. XRP, you know, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on with XRP. And in the meantime, there's a little bit of a buying opportunity that's being created right now. So I think it's playing out a little bit of a bearish short-term cycle before it does whatever it's going to do next. So that's my opinion. But from a fundamental standpoint, and if you look at the story, we're going to go through, I think, 3 different XRP stories, because that's what's starting to happen. And I don't see, and they're adoption stories, you know, they're not fluff. They're not some, you know, some analyst says they like XRP. That's not a story. These are real companies doing real things with XRP, just like is happening to Bitcoin. I have, I think, 5 or 6 articles of publicly traded companies that bought Bitcoin or are going to buy Bitcoin. They made announcements within the last week. I think this is the biggest rush of companies moving into Bitcoin, and I think that once we see this start, all right, I think there's no end to this. So I'm going to go through all of those, and they're some of the biggest numbers. One of them, I think, will be the biggest purchase of Bitcoin ever in history. That company won't have the most Bitcoin. MicroStrategy has the most Bitcoin, or now Strategy. It's not close. It will take some unfathomable event for somebody to pass them. And that doesn't count BlackRock, who's custodying their clients' Bitcoin, right? MicroStrategy owns their Bitcoin. So Sour Melon Gaming said, poll, will Bitfarms reverse stock split in 2026? Yes or no? All right, let's end this poll. So 60-40, we think we're going to hit a new all-time high and not have to go retest 100,000. That was the last poll. So okay, so this is for Sour Melon Gaming.
So tell me, what is it? 90 days they get a warning under $1?
I think it's 180 days they get a warning, and then they can get an extension on that. And then, you know, then at some point they do get forced into, after, I don't remember if it's 180 days or a year. You either have to be above $1 or you got to do a reverse stock split to get yourself above $1, or you get delisted. So will Bitfarms need to do a reverse stock split in 2026 due to share price remaining under $1? So staying under $1 for too long. And also, you know, some companies may not wait for it. If they see the handwriting on the wall, if Bitfarms gets down to 45 cents and they know that, you know, look, we can delay this all we want, but it doesn't look like we're getting back to $1 in this run. then they would do, just like Hive did. Hive did a reverse stock split, and they would have got back above $1, but they did a reverse stock split anyway. It did not really pay off for them. They rarely do. Usually companies that do reverse stock splits are companies in deep distress, and it's a box you check on the way to the last box being we're out of business.
So any?
Yeah, exactly. Well, look at Muln. We like to talk about that one. There, I'll pull. You want to see a stock split, reverse splits?
I think Bitcoin were each 123 in 2025. Heck yeah. I wouldn't say I've gone 100% into BTC, but I would say that I have the majority of my holdings. It fluctuates between XRP and BTC. It's really neat. It's going back and forth. It's like a seesaw.
Which one pulls ahead of the other?
Yeah. It's really cool. And then I have a lot of altcoins. And here's what's crazy, guys. When altcoins hit, you guys have no idea. I don't know if anybody's been around for altcoin season. I'm really worried about it because everybody's broke, in America. So I'm hoping that there's some caveat from that Doge that gets money into hands, because if that happens, I think we could have a really good alt season.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
I've spent the last couple of weeks very spooked about the altcoin season, but I'm starting to feel like, okay, I don't want to get, because this is exactly what they do. They wait long enough so that even the people with the highest level of conviction give up, and then that's when it happens. So I'm still wrestling in my head on, are they getting me here? Am I giving up too soon?
I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not, probably most people would say that I'm doing is crazy because the amount of money it is, but I'm not going, it's uncomfortable for me. And most of these, I hope to trade within the next 6 months. But XRP and Bitcoin, I plan on holding them for the next 10 years. So I'm not really even looking. I could care less what the price of either one of them is. It's not going to affect me. The only thing it'll affect me is if we go sub 100 right now, I think people are just going to buy a lot more with BTC.
If we go under 100. And I think, and that's why I talked about that line at 100. I'm going to get back to the Bitcoin chart, and let me get to the 1-day chart, let me get rid of this little mess here.
Brent, you just can't talk me out of XRP, by the way. There's nothing you can say that would change my mind about it. And I'm up so much already. It's just, I don't really, you know what I mean?
Yeah, George is on XRP, and I know he's got certain price targets in his head, and we're not close to them yet. And we may disagree on the top end numbers, but I think XRP is going to do multiples from where it is right now, and maybe we'll do some XRP stories next. I just wanted to show this 1-day Bitcoin chart because I do think this is just a classic. Listen, look at this. Let's do from April 9th until we hit a new all-time high on May 23rd. That's 43 days. If you guys can see this number on the screen, Bitcoin was up 50%, 50.5% in 43 days. So it is only natural. Nothing goes up in a straight line, and we know Bitcoin has volatility. If you look, here's a pullback, here's a pullback, here's a pullback. And so, we're really due for a pullback because the last 2 times that it was time to have a pullback, we just did a big period of sideways consolidation. So we had this giant run with no pullback. So that's why I was saying I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, we're retesting this line right now. If we go down and retest this line, I would be surprised if we get into this area. And if we get below this 93 or 94,000, I'd be concerned. That would be, to me, that would be bearish. But I don't think you're going to see that, because if you look at the daily RSI, it's resetting in a big way, right? This was just up at 77. It's now, today, it's now at 52. So it's gone from 77 down to 52. 50 is neutral. And by the way, if you look at the last long time, like I've got a yellow line here a couple of times, like on these big dips, a couple of times we momentarily get out of this, but this yellow line has been really good support. So I think we either bounce off of 50 or, you know, somewhere around 40 or 41. Yes, it's possible for a couple of days we run even lower than that, but we're doing a good job of resetting the daily RSI. We already had, on the MACD, we already had a bearish crossover a week ago. I think we're getting to the bottom of the bearish activity here. So this is supernatural, right? A couple of more red days, then we start having pink candles, and then, you know, that's why I still think there's a really, really strong chance that we run down to 100. If we ran down to 100, that would give this a lot of time to reset to, you know, it's already here, and, you know, it doesn't get much lower than that on the histogram. So that gives it plenty of time. And then it gives it time to go reset and bounce off of here and take the next run up. So I feel like the right things are happening. And, you know, I just showed you in 43 days, we just had almost a 51% run up. So, you know, there's going to be pullbacks. Anybody who's like freaking out because we pulled back from 112 to 104, and I don't think too many people are freaking out about that, but this is exactly how it works. 10% pullbacks, 20% pullbacks are commonplace. We had 5 of them in 2024. In a year where Bitcoin was up 120%, we had 5 20% pullbacks. So from 112 to 100 is not even a 20% pullback. But I do think we're in a very bullish time right now, so I don't think we're going to get that this time. But for the sake of argument, let's just measure, what would a 20% pullback from here be? So this green line here at $89,000, we would have to go all the way back, and that's the day we broke out. We had this gigantic green candle up to the $93,000 range. That's the last time we were at this line, and that line, and this green line was resistance here and here, but, you know, we got above it in one day and never retested it. So that would be your 20% pullback. So, you know, anything's possible. 20%, there's no way we could sit here and go, I'm shocked Bitcoin had a 20% pullback when it did it 5 times last year. Inside of a year, it was up 120%. So, you know, all that's on the table. But for in my mind, I think what comes next is either we hold this 104 or we go test 100, and then we go break the all-time high. I think that's what the next couple of weeks have in store for us. So will Bitfarms need a reverse stock split? That is our current poll in 2026 due to their price remaining under $1. 65%, almost 2/3, think Bitfarms will continue to head in the wrong direction, and they are going to end up having to do a reverse stock split.
I think your next poll should be, should we ever talk about Bitfarms again on this channel?
Well, if there's news.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you.
I feel like I've been violated by them.
I know, me too. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I feel like they're going to participate. They're going to participate in the run, in my opinion. And so where I've changed my mind, this was one of my ultra high conviction plays, but they have philosophically changed what and who they are as a business. So now I think I will stick with it. I believe they're going to get the run when everything takes off and Bitcoin finally does get to the final phase of this bull run. And then wherever they are at that point, I'll probably sell. That's my current thought process. So instead of just taking profits and having that be a long-term hold, you know, several companies have jumped ahead of that in my mind. That's where I am right now on it, as I'm reevaluating based on the fact that, you know, as fundamentals change in the companies you invest in, you got to reevaluate. Sometimes the reevaluation is, okay, I'm still going to do the same thing. Sometimes it's, I need a new game plan. So that's where I'm at with them. And I really don't like the fact that they are no longer going to put out a monthly operational report. I think they're trying to distance themselves. A lot of these companies, I'm going to go to the chart because this is all of a sudden a trend, and it's a trend I do not care for at all. We now have, so TeraWulf, they started this. They stopped doing, if we go back, so they didn't do one in April, they didn't do one in March, they didn't do one in February, they didn't do one in January. The last monthly operational update TeraWulf did was December of 2024. The last monthly operational update BitDigital did, by the way, they're not even a Bitcoin miner at this point anymore, and that doesn't mean they're mining 0 Bitcoin, but you can see they were at 28% or 28 Bitcoin and falling, so they're insignificant. They stopped putting out a report in January, so that's 2. Hut stopped putting out a report. This month, they did not put out a report, so they stopped in April. Core Scientific, although on Twitter, they tell us how many Bitcoin they mine every single day, so we know the number of Bitcoin that they mine, but they're not putting a monthly operational report out, so we don't know what their exahash is, what their business plans are. So Core Scientific isn't putting out a report anymore. And then Bitfarms did put out a report in April, but in their conference call, they said, that's it. That's the last one. No more monthly reporting. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies. And there's something very telling about those 5 companies. All of those companies are moving away from Bitcoin mining and towards high performance computing. And I think they don't want to put out a monthly Bitcoin operational report because they don't want to be perceived as a Bitcoin miner. So I think they're hiding from the thing and I think this is the wrong time to hide from that. I think they're going to regret that decision because even if they don't add another exahash the rest of the year, they're still going to be very competitive. You can see they're solidly in 5th place right now. There's not too many of these companies that are going to pass them. So they're going to remain in 5th or 6th or 7th place the rest of the year. So I would put the reports out and let everybody know, you know, we're still doing a good job instead of wondering what's going on. So I know a lot of you will probably disagree with my decision to hold on to Bitfarms for now. You know, I could try and gamble, sell it all right now, and wait and buy in if it has a big pullback on the Riot, you know, news, or not news, once Riot gets rid of their 90 million shares, that's going to be a painful process. But I usually don't play those kind of games. But I'll think about it. So we'll end this poll. This almost 70% now thinks Bitfarms is in some trouble. Just going to put a new poll up. All right, you're not going to see this one coming, George. I've never done this one before. which will be a better investment for the next 12 months? In other words, which one's going to go up a higher percentage? So Bitcoin, and I'm going to be fascinated to see what people think. Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, or the Bitcoin miners? And these Bitcoin, XRP, and Ethereum. Returns. Yeah, this is so, if Bitcoin goes up 50% and XRP goes up 80%, then XRP was the better investment. And if Ethereum goes up 100%, then that was the better investment. So which one's got more room to run? Starting now, which is the best place to put your money? And I picked these because they're all at very different points in their journey. XRP just had a giant run up, but they're off of their all-time high. Ethereum just had a giant run up, but they still need to double basically to get back to their, well, not quite, but they need to go up significantly to get back to their all-time high from the last cycle. And Bitcoin's already way past its all-time high from the last cycle. So they're all three in different spots. So it becomes interesting, what's the best spot from now? And the Bitcoin miners have done poorly this run, right? 2023 was an incredible year to own Bitcoin miners. Since then, not so much. So is this going to be their year? It's a tough pick. Because as I buy some altcoins, because I don't think I'm going to give up on altcoin season, but I don't think I'm going to be buying lottery tickets. I want to buy some
gold.
Yeah, I'm not. I think gold had its run, and it was spectacular. And congratulations to everybody that made money in it. But I think the gold rush has run its course.
When do you think we're seeing any price reductions in the grocery store?
I don't. All I can do is hope for the answer to that. Certain things have come down, but I don't. It's hard. Sometimes it's rare to see the prices come down. You see inflation increase at a lower rate, but we're still, right? Even these great inflation numbers.
I think we have to see it come down.
I do too. And I think we will see prices come down at the grocery store in the United States. But that's a rare thing to happen. It's only because we had unusual inflation by what I think were bogusly manufactured series of events. And, I'll tell you, if Jeff's here, he's been with us for years, and he's been in the supermarkets, stocks for years, and they're minting money. So, a part of this, they can say, well, inflation, all the prices went up. Part of it is they're just minting money. And so is the Fortune 500. So, some of what can slow inflation down for the consumer is, it's possible that some of these PE ratios are going to have to take a hit. We've seen oil come way down. That's the biggest factor of them all as it pertains. Even at the grocery store, oil's the biggest factor as to, the prices going up or down. So we've seen.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm reading somebody's comment, and I was thinking about answering the question. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead. He's talking about my buddy Tether, my Tether coin.
Yes.
And they're talking about they want to become the biggest Bitcoin miner. But their power could be free.
Tether.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Because they're in China.
Pardon
Bless
me.
you.
Thank you.
They're in China.
Well, is China going to let them do that?
Did you let them? Of course. What do they care?
Well, they banned Bitcoin mining years ago.
Uh-huh.
And Will Porter's asking, so grocery stores just randomly decided to make big profits? No, they didn't. But what they did do is capitalize on a series of events which forced them to raise prices dramatically, and a lot of which was massive, massive disruptions in the supply chains. You know, I'm in my I'll call it my mid 50s. I walked into a grocery store with empty shelves for the first time in my life in 2020. And the thought that that would ever happen, I would have put a 0% chance that we would ever have a day where that happened. And that lasted for years, right? To a lesser extent, it corrected itself slowly over time. We had a monumental disruption in the supply chain. It turned everything upside down. The supply demand got out of whack to the point where, you know, everybody was charging more, and it was yes, the freight was costing more, and some of it wasn't getting here at all, so there was hardly any, you know, so the price goes up. But the thing is, that's all over now, and we didn't see the price come down. A box of cereal is $8 or $10 here, right? That's
insane.
I know they're making probably their gross profit has tripled on cereal. That would be my guess. And go up and down the aisles. And it's those type of processed stuff that the gross margins have gone. Grocery stores used to run incredibly tight. If you got a bottom line net income of 1% of revenue, that was the historic average for 100 years in this country for grocery stores. That's not true anymore. They're minting money. And they gotta give some of it, they gotta give some back to the consumer, or what you're going to get is a recession, and then people are going to stop buying stuff on account of that, and that's going to drive the price down. So one way or the other, I think you're going to see these artificially inflated prices creating artificially high profits come down. And listen, I'm not knocking anybody. If I could charge extra for what I sell, I would do it. But, you know, there will come a time sooner than later where they just can't do it anymore, and they're going to have to get real.
What groceries? What do you buy? Cereal's really that much money?
Cereal's here where I live, and I know everything costs a little bit more here. It's very expensive, but yeah, $8-9 for a box of cereal.
Like Raisin Brand?
Yeah. I'm sure, you know, tell me how much it costs wherever you are. I'm sure it's different all over, and I can almost guarantee you I could probably go to there's some Walmart grocery stores here.
Oh, you're at Publix? I'm
at Publix. And so I'm paying extra, and, you know,
Here's a 21 ounce. It's on sale. Regularly $6.99, $4.51. Wow, Raisin Brand.
Wow,
you're right, $7.
It's crazy. And then you get the family size, and it's $10 or $11. It's all of the processed foods. You know, for a while it was all of the meats. Remember, the price of meat went bananas, and you know that's starting to correct itself. That's already coming down. The price of eggs has come down a lot. That was a totally different phenomenon, but also, in my opinion, manufactured. Yeah, I did just do a trip. I every once in a while, I will just go through. One of the things, Publix is the dominant grocery store here in Florida. And they do a lot of buy one, get one frees. So I just did an entire shopping trip where I only bought it if it was buy one, get one free. And the thing was, it's like a goof because I'm still paying. That's still what it used to cost. They've just doubled the price. You know, the price has gone up so much on everything that I'm doing buy one, get one. I'm getting one free. And in some instances, I'm paying more than I was 3 years ago, even though I'm getting one free. But it does help.
Listen to this. Listen to this. King, Hawaiian King rolls. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Those used to be like free.
$9.99.
Yeah, that's insane. Because I used to get those with Publix has excellent. They make fried chicken and sell it in there. And to me, I think it's the best fried chicken. So I would always get the Hawaiian rolls are right next to that. So I would always grab those, and they were dirt cheap. And now, you know, it sounds like
that's insane. What in the world's going on?
Lucky Charms are 9 shares of Bitfarms.
That's really funny right there.
That's a good one. I'll give you that one.
Tom, are you disappointed where we're at with the Bitcoin miners?
Absolutely.
I mean, this is crazy. Did you think it would go this long?
No, I did not think it would go this long. This level of underperformance is staggering. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. And let me go to a chart and show it. And then I want to get to some stories because I'm wandering a little, but that's all right. We're here to talk. Okay, so this popped up first, so we'll go through this. This is where May ended. This was the last trading day of May. So what was a great month? You can see I left this chart up here. The reason this chart goes up to 60% is a bunch of these last week or on Tuesday were at 60%. That, you know, and they scaled down from there. I'm not saying all of them, but that's how much everything has pulled back from the peak of May. So it's still, right, Bitcoin was up 11% in May. That's a great month. 11% in 1 month is a fantastic month. Iron was up 37%, BitDeer 34%, and BitDeer tanked. BitDeer was down 10% today, and it's still up 34% for the month. Core Scientific 31, TeraWolf 27, Hut 24, Bit Digital, which I'm going to take off the list. It's off of certain portions of this list. I just haven't finished. Up 22, and then it drops. So what I call the big three, Riot up 11, Marathon up 6, CleanSpark up 6. That is poor performance versus Bitcoin, which was up 11% for the month. So at the end of the month, the big three, and if you want to say, now conversely, if you want to say the big four, Iron is every bit as big as those companies, and they're up 37%. So it's interesting to me that the one out of those four companies that isn't hodling and is putting all their money, all their cash flow from the Bitcoin mining into AI or high performance computing, they had the best month out of everybody this month. It is my feeling that the three companies with large hodl stacks, the largest by far is Marathon. They're pushing 50,000. Riot is pushing 20,000 Bitcoin. CleanSpark's at around 12,000. So I think you're going to see those companies have good years because, I mean, it's just math. If Bitcoin's $180,000 and you got 50,000 Bitcoin, your company's worth a lot more. So that's what I feel like is going to happen over time. But yeah, I'm disappointed. This is the month of May, but then let's look at year to date. Every Bitcoin miner is now red. So CleanSpark was green for about a month, but with the last couple of days of price action, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's gone red. They're all red. So you got Bitcoin year to date up 12%, not dramatic. But you've got some of these companies, BitDeer's down 41% this year. Bitfarms,
isn't it sell in May and go away?
Sell in May and go away, and we had that conversation coming into this month. But May was a decent month, and I don't think that's going to be a good strategy. I really don't. I think we're going to get some runs, but you can see year to date, Bitfarms down 38%. We think that's going to get maybe a lot worse with 90 million shares going onto the market. TeraWolf 38%, Hive 37%. I bought more Hive today. So that's you know, not financial advice, but just so that you guys know, I added to my Hive position today, and I added to my Bitcoin through the ETFs I added to my Bitcoin position today. And that's it. That's all the buying I did this week, because I do feel like there's a really good chance we're going to go test 100,000. And I don't really need to buy any more of these. These are pretty much all full positions. But if the opportunity presents itself, you know, I think it's good. Hive, so if I go from the low of the crypto winter until today, you can see, oh, the wrong thing's yellow. I got to switch this. Bitcoin jumped ahead of it. Bitcoin's up 577% from back in it double bottomed in November and December of 2022 at around $15,500. So that's a 577% move on Bitcoin. You've got Cypher, Iron, and Core Scientific that have done actually better than that. TerraWolf is neck and neck. And then the rest of these have underperformed. But if you look all alone, all by itself, Hive's only up 32% from its all-time low at the bottom of the crypto winter. And by the way, a month ago, it was lower than it was at the bottom of the crypto winter. This went into the red. So there's no sense in that. And that's going to lead me to my next story, because here's what I'm seeing with Hive. May 27th, Hive Digital Technologies surpasses 10 exahash of Bitcoin hash rate as expansion in Paraguay accelerates. Okay, so this is May 27th. Let's go back in time a little bit. May 14th, 2 weeks ago, Hive surpasses 8 exahash. So that press release was put out 2 weeks ago. They were at 6 exahash. They got to 8 exahash. Then a week ago, they said we're at 9.5 exahash. And now this week, they said they're at 10 exahash. And we know phase 1 objective is 11.5 exahash by June 30th. So this is the end of May. Next month, they're planning to get to 11.5 exahash. So they will have more than doubled their exahash, or approximately doubled their exahash in 2 months. So Hive is finally kicking into gear, and this is all as a part of a strategy to get to 25 exahash by the end of the year 2025. So this is a company that's basically roughly at its low from the bottom, absolute bottom of the crypto winter when Bitcoin was at $15,500. So And by the way, Hive at that point was at 3 exahash. So now they're at 10 exahash, and Bitcoin's $104,000. So tell me how they're still the same price. This company has underperformed more so than any other of the Bitcoin miners by far. And that is shown on this chart. The next closest one is Bitfarms, which is only up 144%. And the sad part is, at one point, Bitfarms was one of the leaders. So I'll show you this. This has been a painful journey, the Bitfarms journey, since just really the last 15 months. If I go back and look, if I go back to February of 2024, so last year, Bitfarms was almost $4 a share, $3.91. So just from last year, and Bitcoin's way up from here, Bitfarms is down 76% from its 2024 high. That's not its all-time high or its high from the previous cycle. This got to, I believe, $9.36. So, I mean, we got to really zoom out. Yeah. So, like, this was its high of when Bitcoin had, ran up to 69,000, Bitfarms ran up to over $9, $9.36. It's at 92 cents right now. It's down 90% from its high of the previous cycle. So, I know I'm not satisfied with what they're doing. They've changed their game plan. But I think this is an overreaction. I think this stock is oversold. And, I think it stands, even if it never gets back to where it was, last February, just in November, this was at $2.76. That's a triple. That would be a triple from where it is right now. So I think there's a reasonable chance of it getting back to those types of numbers. And, time will tell, and it could get worse before it gets better. So let's get to XRP. So, okay, let's take a look at this. Which will be a better investment for the next 12 months? That is our current poll. By the way, I'm going to interrupt myself to say, please smash the like button, the thumbs up button. We're at 74. We try to get to 100 every single stream. We failed one time a month ago. That was one of our check marks that Bitcoin's bottomed out. And so we're at 74. Help us out. So the number one right now in first place, almost a majority, but not quite, Bitcoin. 45% of the people think that just straight up investing in Bitcoin is going to be your best bet for the next 12 months. In second place is the Bitcoin miners in a distant second at 23%. In third place, XRP at 17%. And in last place, Ethereum at 14%. So that's what really surprises me. Ethereum's so far behind Bitcoin. I thought people would maybe think that they would do some catching up this year.
They were supposed to go. I was in shock that they didn't take off yet.
They had one really nice push, and we should look at Ethereum because, it's ugly. Right, this thing got down to, on this day, on April 9th, so it's May 30th, this got down to $1,383. Ethereum, right, its high from the last cycle was just under $5,000. Last month, it was down, while Bitcoin was way above its previous all-time high. Ethereum was down 71% off of its all-time high. So this is why now it's had a nice run, but it's still down 47% just to get back to where it was in the last cycle. Now, we expect a lot more than that out of our cryptocurrency.
Tom, does the dilution in the shares at all affect your thought process on the price?
On the price of the Bitcoin miners?
Yeah.
Yes, some of these may not get back to their all-time highs because of the stock dilution that they did. But a lot of these companies were very wise with the money that they got out of these stock dilutions, and they grew their business, they grew their infrastructure, and they set themselves up to succeed going forward. So I know there was a period, 2024, it was dizzying, the stock dilution. I mean, I think a lot of these companies realized we got to get somewhere. We got to get there right now, and everybody's going to hate us for it. But if we don't do it, we're going to get left behind. And so they did it. They bit the bullet and they did it. But now it's done. Right? They've done what they've had to do, and that doesn't mean they never have to spend another dollar. But the CapEx going forward for these companies as a percentage of their revenue is going to be much smaller than it was in this cycle. This cycle was peak CapEx, and as a result, it was peak stock dilution. Also, there was coming into and out of the crypto winter, no one was lending these companies any money at any interest rate. So they were forced to use dilution, right? There's three ways to get money. That's to make money from operations, to borrow it, or through equity. Two of those three options were off the table for these companies for a couple of years. So they diluted. Now they've all been moving more towards pretty reasonably structured debt. So I just think they're in a better spot. They're ready to run. It looked like they were starting to run, but we're getting one of our natural normal pullbacks, in my opinion, in Bitcoin, right? We see 1, 2, 3, 4 red days in a row. And we just retested one of my lines here of support, and I think we might get down to the other one. either way, I still think that's all as a part of, if you look at this info line is 43 days from bottom to top, and it was almost 51% increase. And even if you go to where we finished today, it's now 51 days and it's a 41% increase. So we are in a bullish pattern here. But, in the short term, we got this little pullback. And that's how it happens. And it could, and I think it could go to here. But that's just my opinion. Let's see what you guys think. So we'll end this poll. Bitcoin's the winner. Right now, everybody thinks you're best off. Just forget everything else. Just put your money in Bitcoin. All right, here's another one we don't usually do. Okay, so I picked all these numbers for a reason. What's the lowest Bitcoin will retest in this bull run? Is it going to go retest 100K? I mean, we're pretty close. We're at 104,700 right now. Is it going to retest 89K? That is this green line right here, and that would represent a 20% pullback from the highs. So we get 20% pullbacks, right? I mean, we know we get them. That's a Bitcoin thing. So 89,000 would be a 20% pullback. 69,000 brings us back to the all-time high from the previous Bitcoin cycle. So that's, 4 years ago. So are we going to go all the way back down to this yellow line, which held for 4 years? Or do you think it's going to get even worse than that? So those are two, in my opinion, those are two extremely bearish scenarios. If you think either of those, you probably think we've already topped. And I'll go to an article real quick that talks about that, because there are people talking about, and this is the 5th time in this cycle we've had people talking about, is this the top? Let's see if I can find this. Meanwhile, while all that's happening, Bitcoin mining difficulty is set to reach a record high. So we're about to have a difficulty increase, and it's looking like, well, we can go. Where is that? Let me press refresh. So you can see this is how many blocks in between them changing the difficulty level. So we're 99% of the way through this next roughly 2-week block period, and we're at 3.99%. That would raise us up to 126 trillion difficulty level, and that would be a new all-time high. So it seems like the world is not bearish on Bitcoin. We're at a new all-time high on the difficulty level. And I do want to get to some of these stories. I'm gonna run through them, but there's a lot going on in here. Number one, these are all companies adopting a Bitcoin treasury strategy. Trump media raises $2.5 billion for Bitcoin treasury strategy. I think there's an update on this. So they closed it out. They netted $2.3 billion, all of which they're going to buy Bitcoin with. So, they're going to get to buy over 20,000 Bitcoin. They're going to immediately become the second the third largest holder, right? It's MicroStrategy in first place by a mile. They have 580,000 Bitcoin. Then it's Marathon at like they're pushing 50,000, but not quite there. And then I think it'll be Trump Media with maybe 20 or 23,000 Bitcoin, depending on what price they get to buy these at. So this is one of the biggest purchases in the history of Bitcoin. So, you know, when people are saying the run's over and it's out, it's like, no, adoption's only begun. And I'm going to go on because this is only one article. So here's 2.3 billion. Bitcoin treasury firm 21 Capital brings total fundraise to 685 million. So this is strictly just a company that's going to be a publicly traded Bitcoin treasury company. So they don't even have a false pretense like MicroStrategy of an underlying business that does its own thing and breaks even. That's just going to be a publicly traded Bitcoin treasury company. So that's another 685 million. But wait, there's more. GameStop. Right, this came out a couple of days ago. GameStop purchases over $500 million worth of Bitcoin. These are all this week, guys. $500 million worth of Bitcoin. Strive closes a $750 million investment deal to power alpha-generating Bitcoin strategy. So they're going to spend... They just raised $750 million to buy Bitcoin. They've got some strategies on maybe how to leverage, buy out some of the people waiting on the Mt. Gox, you know, at maybe a discount. So buy their Bitcoin, and then whatever's left over, they'll just have to buy at market price. But there's another $750 million. I mean, we just went through, that's $2.5 billion, 685 million. 500 million, 750 million. Oh, by the way, it's just another week. Strategy spent 427 million to buy another 4,000 Bitcoin. Pretty average week for them, bringing their total to over 580,000 Bitcoin. I mean, we just went through 5 different articles of companies spending between $400 million and $2.5 billion on Bitcoin. And that's just this week. We've never had a week like this. Nobody seems to be talking about this. The excitement level doesn't feel like it's there, but this is what we've been waiting for. Right? And it's only going to go up from here because there's still 99.9% of the companies own 0 Bitcoin. You know, then you had a couple of smaller ones. Here's a company, Semler Scientific. They went out and bought, they got nothing to do with Bitcoin, right? They went out and bought $50 million worth of Bitcoin, 455 Bitcoin. And by the way, they now own 4,264 Bitcoin. So, you know, there's a small company going out and doing this. Here's Aniva, I think.
That's crazy.
A small food firm buys 21 Bitcoin, jumping on the Bitcoin treasury trend. The shares fall anyway, it says. But here's a tiny company, and they're going out and buying 21 Bitcoin. The company's looking to accumulate up to 500 Bitcoin within 6 months and 5,000 Bitcoin within the next 3 years. So we have no idea how many companies are out there planning to have a Bitcoin treasury as a part of their balance sheet. And ultimately, I think it's going to be, and you know, these aren't even the companies with the big bucks. A lot of these companies they don't even have the money. They had to go borrow the money to go buy Bitcoin. So that's where we're at right now. So here's another reason we had a little bit of a pullback. We had a streak that was just, where did it go?
We had a streaker?
We had a, I gotta find that window closed. I gotta find it. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so you can see the Bitcoin ETFs had a historic run. By the way, BlackRock has not stopped buying. So the 29th, which was Wednesday, right? Or was that Thursday? No, that was Wednesday. Oh, sorry. That was Thursday. The 29th was Thursday. That was the first day of outflow in weeks. 437 million of inflow, 385 million, 211 million, 934 million, 600, 300, 667, 260, 114, 319. You got to go all the way back to May 13th, where we had one red day. And then, by the way, above this, the rest of the May was all in the black. So we've had an epic run of the ETFs buying Bitcoin. So yes, yesterday we had outflow. Today, obviously, we had a little bit of a down day. We'll probably have some outflow. But this is why I'm saying, like, this is just taking a breath. Right after that much inflow, this is just the ETFs taking a little breather, some people taking some profits. But, I mean, BlackRock's at 49 million, or sorry, I guess that's $1 billion of inflow. And their Bitcoin is worth a lot more than that. That's just the inflow that came in to purchase it. But the price of Bitcoin's gone way up. So, you know, they're at 60 or 70 billion dollars worth of Bitcoin. And you can see they had no red days. Even on this day that we had a big outflow, BlackRock was $125 million in. So we'll see what happens today. But, you know, we're due or overdue a little break and a little pullback. So I'm not getting too excited about what's going on here. I think everything, to me, if you just take one step back, this all still looks like extremely positive data, mass adoption just beginning. So it's one of those things, zoom out. You know, we talk about that a lot. When in doubt, zoom out a little, because, you know, even just going to this 1 day chart, you can still see this is a massive uptrend we're in the middle of. And it's a massive uptrend in the middle of a massive uptrend. If I go to the 1 week chart, right, this has been going on. Sorry, this has been going on since December of 2022. I mean, that's a bull market. And yeah, you know what? For those of you who have even a little bit more than a short-term memory, we just had 4 months of pain. Right? This was brutal. This is a 1 week chart. This was 4 months of pain. So yes, we went through the pain, and now we're on the other side. We broke out of the previous high from that top back in January of 2025. And yes, we're having a little pull. But this is our first weekly red candle since the bottom. I mean, they can't all be green forever. So we had one pullback. Maybe we'll have another one. Who knows? But I think it's still way up from here, in my opinion. So on this one, what's the lowest Bitcoin will retest? So just about half of you think 100,000 is as low as we'll go, 50% right now. 30% think we'll get down to 89,000, that full 20% pullback. Well, just switch to 10%. Think we're going to retest the lows from the 2001 bull market at 69,000, and 10% think we're going to go even lower than that. But overall, fairly optimistic. People think we're either going to maybe just go down a few dollars and retest that 100,000, or maybe do the full 20% pullback and retest 89,000. Neither one of which is a disaster, and I will view them as buying opportunities. But I'm trying to be cautious and slow down. You know, we've had buying opportunities for 2 years now, so, you know, it's getting a little exhausting. George, what's
exhausting, Tom?
What was your pick?
89.
89, you think we're going to get that 20% pullback?
Yeah, just because it's going to be one of the last times they can actually really mess with it that hard.
And it's what, I mean, it's what Bitcoin does. The 20% pullback is like, that is the Bitcoin maneuver. So
I shall add.
You'll add.
That'd be awesome, honestly.
That's
because I've been trying to do something. And
unless you think this bull run is over, it long term, a 20% pullback is good news and a buying opportunity. So, you know, if you got some time to save up a few bucks, whatever it is, you know, I'm not telling you to buy. None of this is financial advice, but you know, when you're in 2024, every time we had a 20% pullback, we ran way up from there. And we finished up 120% on the year. So let's just do at least one XRP story because we can go through these real quick too.
That stinks.
What?
I'm not in the 1% holders of Bitcoin.
Oh.
I'm in the 2% holders of Bitcoin.
Close.
So if you have one coin of Bitcoin, you're 1.79% holder of Bitcoin.
You're in the top 2% if you have one coin or more. Wow. Well,
if you have 0.121, you're in the top 10%.
That's incredible. That's probably the majority of our listening audience is in one of those buckets, I would think. So it's going to happen again, George. We're at 84 likes and we're running already overtime, but we'll go a little longer because I started late. So if you would be so kind, if you're here, if you haven't smashed the like button, if you could help the channel, if you enjoy these streams, please smash the like button. We're at 85. We're in danger of not getting to 100, which has only ever happened to us one time. Is this going to be the second time? Okay, so let's just talk XRP for a minute. I'll go through these stories quickly. Dubai unveils real estate tokenization platform on the XRP ledger amid $16 billion initiative. So the new platform lets investors buy fractional ownership in Dubai property with title deeds tokenized on the XRP ledger. This is the future. If you hear about, oh, everything's going to get tokenized, this is what they're talking about. And here in Dubai, I'm not in Dubai, but they're in Dubai. They're doing this with $16 billion of their property, and they're going to do it on the XRP ledger. So this is why I say, like, this is not some meme coin. Real adoption is happening for Bitcoin, and real adoption is happening for XRP. So that's why I have those two in particular. Ethereum, I scratch my head about, but these two in particular, I just see a lot of real world applications going on here. So this is only the beginning. We're at the 0.0001% of the tokenization of the world. And this is a brilliant idea, right? Now you can own 99.9% of the people in the world can't afford property in Dubai. Well, now they can because they can buy a fractional share on the blockchain. So now everybody can afford property in Dubai. Now, is it property you can go stay in and live in? No, it's investment property and you'll own a fraction of it. But I think this is brilliant, and it goes right to what we think the future of cryptocurrency is, and in particular, XRP. I got a couple more XRP. Okay, Vivo Power raises $121 million to launch XRP treasury strategy with Saudi royal backing. So here's a company. They're not doing a Bitcoin treasury. They're raising money to buy XRP. And not a little bit, $121 million. The NASDAQ listed energy firm aims to be the first public company with XRP focus, with ex-SBI Ripple Asia executive joining as chairman of the advisory board. So again, this is real money. International chauffeur service WeBus plans a $300 million raise for what? For XRP strategic reserve. $300 million. The China-based company says it aims to integrate XRP payments into its global chauffeur network. WeBus International plans to raise up to $300 million through non-equity financing to support its global chauffeur payment network with an XRP reserve. The initiative aims to integrate XRP's cross-border settlement capabilities into WeBus's ecosystem, including on-chain booking records and Web3-based loyalty program. Massive adoption rate here for XRP. So you're starting to see, like, we've never seen these stories before. And that's two of them that are unprecedented. So I think it's just the beginning. And these two are coming out when XRP is going through a little technical downturn that I think is strictly just based on the technicals that to me looks like it's representing a buying opportunity. When you're seeing a little bit of a pullback based on the technicals, but you're seeing real world adoption. I mean, this is real world adoption.
It's going down because of the lawsuit is still pending.
Right.
I think
the judge undid that.
Well, and then you heard too about it was supposed to start the day after Memorial Day, the ETF. And guess what? They kicked it down the road. I wonder why.
But, you know, for those of you interested, maybe this is the buying opportunity. I'm going to be paying more and more attention to XRP. George has been pounding the table on this for 3 years, but there's too many stories now of real adoption.
Years.
It's not
3 years, Tom. And they never bought one.
I think
it doesn't bode well for our channel, Tom.
I don't want to say it, but I think that's going to be my weekend purchase. I was very busy today and I made a couple of other purchases and I didn't have time to do this, but I think it is now time. And if it keeps pulling back, for me, this is a buying opportunity. And let's just look at XRP for a minute. Because you can see just even this little, you know, from where it was a couple of weeks ago, it's down 17%. And from where it was a couple of months ago, right, this was back in January, so it's down 35%. It's been down as much as, and I missed my window. I intended to buy right here, and I didn't. It got down over 50%. But this is already down, you know, 35 or 36%. So to me, this is a buying opportunity. If not now, then when? So I plan on buying some of this over the weekend. Not financial advice. You guys, please do a deep dive on XRP if you're going to buy it, because like Bitcoin, or even more so, very volatile. Like the Bitcoin miners, very volatile. Whoa, George just had a spree to get himself up to
number 2.
And we're trying to get to 100 likes. We're about to wrap it up, and we're not going to get to 100 likes.
Well,
we'll just have to.
I'm taking mine back
somehow go on. Life goes on. You took it back?
I'm taking mine back too.
Did you do it? Because we just went down.
I know I did. I took it back.
Thought we'd have a few people come and save us under the wire, but we got people going the other way. All right. Thanks, George.
Good seeing everybody.
Have a great night. Have a great weekend. And thank you, everybody. Thanks to all the members in particular. Thanks to the subscribers. And thank you, everybody. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and go Bitcoin.